Hey guys, welcome to Power Rankings with the Ice Hockey Aussies. Due to the All-Star break, we've got week 16 and week 17 Power Rankings all melded into one, given almost a week off for most of the sites. So yeah, we've melded both weeks into one, and yeah, to get it underway, with P32 is myself. I've got no movement at all. I don't really see these guys moving much anytime soon. Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, well, like you said, there's not much to say in regards to them. They're kind of playing the same as they were before. Maybe a little bit better than they were before, but nothing to talk home about. They do beat Toronto today, um, but that seems to be a Toronto fashion of losing to teams they shouldn't. And they do get the OT loss against Washington this week. I say this week, but it was before the All Star break. So three out of what 6 points. Not bad, but nothing to push you above the other teams at the moment on the bottom.
No, exactly. I mean, it's a strange one because they get shut out against Toronto yesterday, and then come in and beat them today. So it's yeah. I mean, it's good. It's a good win. It's a step forward, but yeah, I need to see more from them to sort of get any inkling of getting them off of that bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just because of one was a home and then the other one was away. So I'm wondering if that's just Toronto had worse jet lag or travel issues in regards to it compared to Columbus. On to my pick at 31. I have a team not moving. It's Chicago.
Yeah, same here. I haven't moved them either. Haven't seen enough from them.
Yeah, well, they win 1 out of 3 games this week. They start off with an OT loss against Anaheim. Then they OT win against Arizona. So teams that are around their period in the power rankings, 1 win, 1 loss, and then they go and lose somewhat comfortably to the Jets. So yeah, there's just not enough seen there. It is good that they're getting those wins, some of those wins against the lower end teams. But honestly, at this point, they don't want those wins. So yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel like them picking up 3 points against teams that they're in the Bedard race for or with, is probably not what they're wanting to do. Um, but at the same time, I mean, they take it to overtime in the game that they win, which means Arizona take a point as well.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's good for their fans. Their fans will want to see them win something. Last thing you want as a fan base is just to every single game you watch, you just get trounced. You like to have a couple of those games where you're watching some decent hockey and you're getting a decent result. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say about Chicago, really, is there?
Nah.
Um, all right, on to P30. Another team not moving. It's pretty much cementing these lower spots at the moment. I've got the Arizona Coyotes.
Alrighty, I've done the same thing. I'm a dart about plus minus with one of the other teams, and yeah, I think they're pretty much cemented around this area. They are playing somewhat better, I think. They're kind of that upset team. They get outshot dramatically, but they somehow win or lose by just 1 goal. Uh, they win against Minnesota Wild, which was the big win this week. And then they OT lose twice in a row, Chicago and St. Louis. St. Louis on the back to back. So what is that? 4 out of 6 points. You take that every day of the week.
Yeah, yeah, and I was similar with you considering moving them up. Probably just because of that compete level, taking every game right to the wire. So it's not like they were out of a game ever. They had a chance to win all three this week, um, which is really good. It's what you want to see. You want that compete level up there. Um, but yeah, I think yeah, probably if they have another week like that, there's going to be no way you can keep them down.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah,
So on to the team that I debated about. It is the Anaheim Ducks at P29. They're playing some decent hockey. They only get one win out of the 3 games. They start off the week shootout loss, Dallas on a back-to-back, Blackhawks OT win, and then they get somewhat comfortably destroyed by Pittsburgh 6-3 and conceding 59 shots. So they're playing better. It's not great, but they're definitely playing better, and that's what's earned them up here and not at the bottom of the echelons anymore.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think, the 3 straight wins before the All-Star break sort of holds them in good stead. And that's why I probably didn't make that swap with Arizona. Just they didn't have a terrible week. They go 500. They have a bad-ish game against Pittsburgh, but the other games were really good. Um, so it was hard to sort of punish them when they had a pretty similar week to Arizona as well. So yeah. Uh,
Alrighty.
all right. Um, On to P28. I've got a team again. There's not a lot of movement for me, and I think probably first 10. There's maybe one or two teams that move. So I got the Montreal Canadiens staying at 28.
Yeah, I didn't move on them on 26. It feels weird having them here, but I don't feel like they had a week to punish. So that's just why I don't move on them. They only play 2 games, and they win one and lose one.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Like, I found that with a bit this week where I thought I don't feel comfortable having this team here, but also the teams below or above them didn't do enough to go down or up. So yeah, it's hard because I'm the same. Like seeing them at 26, don't quite feel like they're there, but I also understand that the teams below that you probably have below them, they they didn't do anything this week either.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah.
Alrighty. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say on Montreal, so I guess I'll move on to my P28, which is San Jose. They moved down one for
Yeah.
me. Um, I flipped plus minus with them over another team that you've probably got them over. It's basically a coin flip. I just think they're less threatening, especially I know it's not happening now, and you can't really put it in the count. But if and when they do lose Timo Meyer, they will get worse. Um, they're weak. They only play 2 games. They OT win against Tampa, which is a really good win. Though they kind of got destroyed in that game. It's just one of those games where you get it past the goalie, and then they lose 4-1 against Florida. So yeah, it's hard. Like, how much do you count the Tampa win? Because they were destroyed in the game, I felt like, but it's just one of those games where they get it past the net.
Yeah, yeah, and I know the team you're talking about next. I think we're probably going to be in the same spot with these teams, but yeah, for me, I feel like that's why I've got these guys ahead of Montreal. I think San Jose are more dangerous than Montreal, especially now Montreal don't have a first line. Um, and yeah, I still think San Jose have that power and they've got that ability to they don't get blown out in too many games. It happens from time to time, but they've got a knack of sort of taking the game to overtime. There's a reason why they've got 11 OT losses. So they're always in it. Um, and that's why I've sort of left them where they were because they had a so week.
Mm,
And the other team they they had probably a worse week, to be honest.
yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Um, all right, and let's talk about that team. At 27, I've got the Vancouver Canucks.
Yep, same for me.
Yeah. But look, obviously the whole Bo Horvat trade happened. During this period, pretty much like what it was basically as the All Star break sort of happened. Um, I for me that was a I didn't think they lost that trade. I think even though Horvat did re-sign, I thought they did pretty well. But Villiers already scored 2 goals for them, which has been good. But again, I wasn't expecting them to get better after losing Horvat, and they got a good win against New York. Islanders. They took it to the Devils and took it to the Rangers. Um, so yeah, they're a tough team to play because of how good they are offensively. Their defense is atrocious. Um, but yeah, just probably the fact they didn't get enough results this week stopped them from moving ahead of San Jose.
Yeah, the thing I don't like them, they're probably going to score 3 to 6 goals against you, guaranteed.
Mm.
But they just can't defend and save goals, and goalies are getting left to dry. So, um, the offense is great. It's great, but there's no defense, and honestly, I don't know even know if you can call it goaltending when sometimes they're just left to dry. So yeah,
Mhm.
they got a lot of defensive woes, but that's why I've got them above Sharks. As I just think putting up those goals can sometimes just surprise a team and get that win. That's why I've got them above there already.
Yeah, I just they conceded 19 goals this week. They
Yeah, well that's
it's
the thing.
like
That's the thing.
yeah, it's just it's tough. I think they've got a great offense, but they've got no defense. So yeah, it's gonna be a
Alrighty.
rough rest of the year.
On to 25. I have the St. Louis Blues not moving.
I'm glad because I didn't see anything out of these guys.
No.
Um,
Well, they only played two
and
games.
I was yeah, well, I didn't know if I'd missed something, but I was like, I can't do anything with them. And honestly, I kind of wanted to move them down
Yeah.
um
Well, they got
for
somewhat
the
destroyed by the Jets, and then they get an OT win against the Coyotes. So there's nothing to brag about here. That
yeah,
it's
and
pretty
they
much
got
standard.
fleeced by the Rangers.
Yeah. I guess
So
the Ryan O'Reilly comes back from injury and scores the OT winner. So that's a positive. They get one of the men back from injury,
mhm.
but I don't think I think it's too little, too late. I think the season's done. I want interest to see what they get for Ryan O'Reilly, assuming their return on Tarasenko, and
Mhm.
I don't see them moving up anytime soon because I feel like they're going to get worse with the trades that yet to come.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, unless Ryan O'Reilly signs with them, they're not making playoffs. I can tell you that much. And yeah, unless he decides to sign with them before deadline day, they're probably trading Ryan O'Reilly out. And yeah, I don't know where I see this team this year and in the future years coming. It's a weird one,
It
but
could be very
all
rough.
right. Mm.
Alrighty,
Um, all right, on to P24. I've got just gonna quickly check that. Yep, okay. Um, Philadelphia Flyers. They're not moving anywhere for me. Just haven't seen enough. I still think they're a very tough team to play against. Um, but yeah, didn't see much from them in the last 2 weeks to sort of warrant any movement from them.
yeah. The one thing I will say is they've been pretty competitive in all their games. Um,
Mm.
they've been very low scoring games or games 2-1. They lose 2-1 to New York. They win 2-1 in a shootout to Edmonton, and then they lose 2-1 in OT to Nashville. So their defensive work is through the roof. They're competing against no matter who they're versing, and I think they're playing good. They're playing good, but I don't think their roster is enough to get them those wins, and that is why they're around the 24 mark in power rankings and probably in the standings as well. And yeah, I don't know where they move on because they need to add more into the roster. I think the coaching side's sorted. It's just roster now.
Yeah, I think they're sort of going to come into their own with Tortorella's system. And if he can get some pieces around that, he might be able to fast track this rebuild. But for him right now, I'd almost be tempted to just see what he can do with a bit of a rebuild. Try and give him a couple of years to rejig this team. Maybe get a couple of pieces in. Um, it might be a couple of years of being right down the bottom. But yeah, I'd be interested to see if he can turn this around. because I think he can have this team playing a really good system as long as they can get the pieces in that complement it.
Yeah.
And then he's just got to add some firepower.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah,
You just need players that play your style. Alrighty.
exactly.
Moving on to
All right.
P23, I have Team Ottawa Senators. Looks like they moved down one for me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I had a look at some things and yeah, just I like 'em, but their defense concerns me.
Yeah, well, they concede what 10 goals this week in 2 games. They beat Montreal 5-4 in a very close game in regulation. Then they
Mhm.
lose pretty comfortably to the Oilers 6-3. Granted, the Oilers are good. Only 2 games. They go 500, but the team they beat's not that great. It's below them in power rankings. Yeah, I like the team. I like what they got. They've just got a lot of defensive work to work on, and some structure, and push that onto next year. But yeah, 23 for me now.
Yeah, I think they've got the pieces. I just think they need defensive defensemen. They need some accountability back there and probably some better goaltending. Um, and they'll be right on their way because they have some serious talent in that team. On both ends as well. Like I'm not saying they've got absolutely zero talent in the defensive pool. I just don't think they've got the defensive defensemen to complement that talent. Um, and if you can get that, and then you can get some decent goaltending in, they, yeah, they sky's the limit for these guys. They've got so much talent there. Um, they've just not got to management just can't freak out and go, oh, it's not working and cut the cord. They've got to realize that they're a couple of pieces away, and they have to try and fulfill those pieces. And it's not a lot. Like defensive defensemen generally don't cost a lot. You've
No,
just got to be willing to go and get them.
alrighty, P22 for you.
P22, the team that was just below them last time, moving up the one spot, Detroit Red Wings.
Yep, I've done the same thing. Boom. There we go.
They
Uh,
get the 2 wins and the 1 loss. They're an up and down team, but yeah, they can be really dangerous when they're on.
yeah, well,
I think
they
you
upset
said
Calgary. Only 17 shots and they win 2-1. So they get a win that they probably shouldn't have, and that is that type of team. They can, like you were about to say, like they can come in one game and be on and destroy, and then they come in the next game and be off and lose. And a lot of the time, it's not because of how the opponent plays, but because just how they're playing. Um, so they win and lose on their own accord, basically.
yeah, exactly. Like they've been inconsistent all year, but again, you made the point earlier. They're just a team that if they're on, they're a dangerous team, but if they're not, they can get destroyed. It's a real Jekyll and Hyde situation.
Yeah,
Um,
hard to be a fan to watch.
and yeah.
Don't know what you're gonna get. Um,
Oh yeah, I'd hate to. I'd hate to be watching them this year.
Already P21. A team that doesn't move is the New York Islanders, even though they add to their roster with Horvat. It started off good. They got 2 wins, Philly and Seattle Kraken on a back-to-back, going 4-0 against them. But then a little disappointing end to the week in Vancouver, losing 5-6, and then losing against Montreal in OT. So it's hard to gauge where they're at the moment with the addition, considering the 2 losses are kind of bad losses. But it started off good at the start of
Yep.
the week.
Oh, I tell you right now. I'll be brutally honest here. Midway through this week, after that Seattle win, I was sitting here going, Islanders potentially with some of the other performance we're seeing and the way they played that Seattle game, but they could be pushing the door for the top 16. And then they did what they did against Vancouver. and Montreal. And it's like, God, guys, like this is you made that big trade for Horvat, which is a questionable one. We both admit that it's a really good fit for the Islanders. Like that's what they needed. They addressed that. But the question is, was it the right call to to make that trade, given that they're going to need another couple of pieces to actually be contenders? But then it looks great until they lose to Vancouver and Montreal. And then you're left wondering, well, is this team any better, or are they going to just continue down the same trend we've seen all year? Win a couple, then lose a couple.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alrighty, P20 for you.
For another team that has honestly been extremely underwhelming this year. Maybe they turned it around. They did get a good win, but yeah, I got Florida Panthers.
Yeah, I've got the same. It's a P20. I couldn't have him any higher, and I couldn't have him any lower. Really, they're kind of just flat in the middle there at 20. It's pretty rock solid. They did have a good week in regards to winning 2, losing 1. They beat Tampa, absolutely destroying them 7-1. Then they beat San Jose 4-1. Then they lose 5-3 to Colorado, and they're pretty much shooting fest, 45 to 50 shots. So they're playing better. I'm not sold on them yet. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Even though they do 7-1 Tampa, I'm not sold on them. I can't move them up.
Yeah, it was a great win, but it was almost as if Tampa just didn't switch back on after the All-Star break. Um, and I'm looking at it, and you think before the loss to Colorado, San Jose, yeah, whatever, but Tampa Bay and then Boston, they were their last two. Boston was their last win before the All-Star break. Tampa was the first win after. Great wins. But then before that, lost to the LA Kings, lost to Pittsburgh, lost to New York Rangers. Like that they're just not putting it together consistently. They might win 2 or 3 games, but then they'll lose 2 or 3 games. And it's just I'm not seeing the powerhouse Florida that we saw last year. And until we see that, I don't think they move. I seriously think they're going to struggle to make playoffs.
Yep, I agree. Alrighty, on to P19. I've made a big call with this one. Just I don't think they're playing as good as they were. It is the Buffalo Sabres. Moving down 5 positions outside the top 16.
Yeah, I've not moved on them as far, but I've definitely moved on them. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's some concerns there.
you were also higher on them last week as well. They don't win either of their games this week. They lose 5-1 against Carolina, and then they lose 7-2 against Calgary, and they've been losing a few games by big margins, so they're not even competing competitively in some of their losses, and that's what concerns me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's they've got a really good young team there. And with the contract of Dylan Cousins, um, going ahead, they've signed their young core long term, which is really good. But again, I think this is a team they've got probably two of the brightest young defensemen in the league at the moment in Owen Power and Ramis Darlene. But I feel like they are also a team that could benefit from a really sound defensive, or one or two really sound defensive defensemen to sort of complement those two. Because that's where I feel like they get let down. We know they need that goaltender. 57 million-year-old Anderson can't do it for them forever. But yeah, I feel that that's what they need, because there's games where they look so good because they've just got the puck on their stick the whole time. But then the second they get caught in their zone, they don't have that defensive defenseman to help them out, and it's just they bleed goals so easily.
Alrighty, your pick at P19.
P19, just moving down in one position. I still have faith in these guys that they could make the playoffs, but again, they're just not doing it on a consistent basis. And they just drop too many games they shouldn't. It's the Calgary Flames.
Alrighty. I have them at 18. They don't move for me.
Yeah, they got a good win today against Buffalo. So you could argue that maybe they should go above Buffalo, like you've done. But again, it's just the consistency of Calgary. They win a couple of games, they lose a few games, they lose to teams they shouldn't generally. A couple of weeks ago, they lost to Chicago and got absolutely blown away. And then followed that up with a win against Seattle. Um, I think that's the problem I've got with them, is they can really turn it on. But then other times they're non-existent and they don't show up against teams that they should be beating.
I think they've been playing better. Last week or two, I think they're actually playing pretty good hockey. They do lose in OT against Rangers, and Rangers have been a very solid team. That was a very close game. Then they lose to Detroit. They completely destroyed Detroit. Only conceding 17 shots, but you lose 2-1. You can't do that. And then they destroy Buffalo. So honestly, I think they're playing really good hockey. I don't think the results are showing it as much. Um, but I'm very impressed with the Rangers OT and the absolute destruction of the Buffalo Sabres today. So I think they're playing good hockey. I can't move on them yet though. I think a few teams above them, like they're in that same coin flip area, but I think the other teams are just a little bit better.
Yeah, I think the other teams have probably done it a little bit more consistently than they have.
But
But yeah, like
I do think they're
I'm still
turning it back on.
yeah. I'm still, yeah, like I agree with you. I still think I'm very hopeful that they can get into a playoff spot. I think that their last 30 games will be better than they've been. I definitely think we're going to see solid hockey from them. The question is, can they do it for a long enough period without sort of dropping games they shouldn't?
Alrighty. On
Uh,
to P17 for me. I believe it's me. Yep, it is me, and it is another coin flip team. Could have done a lot with this one. It is Nashville Predators. They move outside my top 16. It's really just based on coin flips, honestly, on how I feel with other teams, and not really anything negative on Nashville. Um, and,
yeah,
and they only
yeah.
have a small sample size with 2 games this week, and they got handed it to them against Vegas, and that's why I did make the decision. And then they OT win today against Philly, so not too convinced with their week, especially the Vegas thrashing, and that's why they move out my top 16.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I didn't move them up because of anything they've done, more because Buffalo I felt needed to go out of the top 16, and I didn't feel like anyone I had below Nashville quite deserved to go ahead of them just yet. So it's one of those things where they kind of move into the top 16 by default. But I definitely think they've been playing a lot better. It's just that Vegas, if they had even been a little bit closer in that Vegas game, you'd probably turn around and go, yeah, okay. Yeah, they probably do deserve a top 16 spot. But for me right now, it's a default top 16.
Yeah,
Um,
understandable.
I don't quite think they deserve it yet, but they could be there soon.
Alrighty, you're 18, which will be the start of my top 16.
I'd say so, unless you're really high on this team. Um, yeah, it was just a 6-0 loss today. So I think they potentially could have been in the top 16 if they had won, or even been closer. But 6-0, yeah, it wasn't good. Pittsburgh Penguins.
Alrighty, I'm a little bit higher on them. I've got them at 15. Um, got them in my top 16 compared to you. They go up 4 positions for me. I think they're playing decent hockey. I understand the 6-0 talk. In regards to their week, they beat Colorado in OT. 2-1. They basically destroy the Anaheim Ducks with the 59 shots, 6-3. And then they get it handed to them 6-0 today against LA, but it was on a back-to-back, which is why I didn't alleviate as much. And also, I would like to talk about the whole Crosby thing, but I think they're in my top 16 at the moment. I
Yeah.
debated whether it was 16 or 15, but because of how other teams moved, I decided it's around 15 mark. Um, I'll let you
Yeah.
talk about why you have them at 18.
Well, I like their win against Colorado. I thought it was a really a gutsy, grindy win. They get the job done against Anaheim, which is what they need to do. They should be beating that team. Um, for me, I couldn't move them any further because of that 6-0 win. I know the Kings are good, but I don't think they're that good that they should be beating a team like Pittsburgh 6-0.
Oh, well, they just got
Um,
Kempe, really. Kempe just went off.
Kepe just got lucky and yeah, I mean, I do think that the Kings outplayed them. I know Kempe obviously scores 4 goals, and that always helps, but I definitely do think they got outplayed, and so that was a little bit concerning for me. Um, but
No,
yeah,
they
the
they
Crosby
definitely
situation was shocking.
they definitely deserve the 5-0. But then Crosby gets the game misconduct, and then they score on that to go 6-0. Yeah, the Crosby situation, I don't understand it. We both watched the LA feed, and I haven't seen more biased commentary for a while. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know how it's game misconduct. Guy chirps him and he just walks to him, skates to him, and then like there's a tiny little shove, and this is after he's just
Hmm.
been cross-checked in the back, very dangerously into someone's skates, which near his throat, and I didn't hear the commentators talk anything about that, which was disgusting. Um, then yeah, he gets chirped. He just walks up to him, gets a game misconduct for it, and he goes questions the
Yeah.
ref, and the ref purposely skates away from him and then gives him another game misconduct. So I'm disgusted by it. NHL needs to do something. Sydney basically summed it up in his post conference saying, "What do you want me to say? Because I'm not allowed to say anything because how the NHL is." And
Yeah.
so it disgusts me. I sided with Sydney 100% on everything that happened.
I was confused watching it, to be honest, because like you obviously I didn't get to see the game. I watched the highlights, but yeah, you sent me the message saying, "Oh, you've got to see this. Like, if you haven't watched it, check it out." And I was baffled when I watched it because I thought, well, yeah, that's a clear cross check. He's pushed it. He's pretty much cross checked him to the back. And then it's become dangerous because the oncoming Kings player come through. But yeah, the Kings commentary of just that's soft. It's more of a gentle push than like you can't do that. Like the guy's in the crease. He's probably expecting a little bit of contact, but not expecting to get completely shoved in the back. It was just stupid. And yeah, the Kings commentary just embarrassed themselves basically. Like, want to be any more biased, mate? Like, I can guarantee you, if that was the other way around and it was the Kings player who got cross-checked, they would have been whinging to the fucking tilt, going, "Oh, how dare they? He should be, you know, punished for what he got." And for Crosby to get a game misconduct from two players chirping at each other, and he's just come over to sort of be like, "Oh yeah, like let's just yeah, like I'll push you, you'll push me." It's stuff we see every game, and they both got game misconducted for it. It's just stupid. And then for Crosby to then get a second game misconduct for him going up to the ref asking why he got the first one in the first place is just stupid. Like, he's the captain, he's allowed to talk to the ref. And secondly, if you're going to game misconduct someone for something so soft, it's you better damn well give your reasoning for it. And to just game misconduct him for the second time, it was just dumb.
Yeah,
Honestly, dumb.
I loved his
Um,
face after, just staring at the ref making the call. Just you could see the
yeah,
dumbfoundedness, and yeah, I would love a period where they could able to say what they want, because I'd love to hear his full
Oh, 100%.
Untainted
You
exposure.
want to actually get some good content, and you want to improve the league. Start letting people say what they actually feel and
Hmm.
what they think. Because maybe, just maybe, if they start actually expressing how disgusting these NHL refs have been this year, maybe the NHL might step in and actually do something because it's been atrocious. And it's just getting worse. But
Alrighty. On to
yeah,
P16 for me. I have a team dropping off. It's Minnesota Wild.
ooh,
They're just
yeah,
they're holding on for me.
they have been dropping off like crazy. They're not playing well at all.
Nah,
I don't have them falling as far.
nah.
I've got them at 14.
I've only made a few big calls this week. Wild and Buffalo are two of them. And yeah,
Hmm.
I just don't know. I don't like what they're doing. You know, they start off their week losing to Arizona. They lose to Dallas comfortably. And then on the back to back, they lose to Vegas. Understandable, but they lose comfortably. And then they get a shootout win against New Jersey, but they didn't look great getting that win, and it is a
No, they
shootout
didn't.
win. So
Uh,
it's a very bad week. I'm not convinced. I think they were mediocre last week as well, and I think they're just I don't know what's gone wrong, but they're slowly declining back to where they were at the start of the year.
yeah, no, it's not good look for them. They're not playing good hockey either, and you said it really well. Like they didn't play well today. They got the win, but they didn't play well. Um, Credit, I don't think New Jersey played too well either. Um, so it was more of I think it was just one of those things that a team had to win. But it's not a good start. I mean, they've got a 7 game home stand. They've still got 5 home games to go in that, but they're coming up against Florida, Colorado, Dallas, Nashville, and LA Kings. That is by no means a easy home run. Like, yep, you get the benefit of being at home, but that is 5 teams you probably don't really want to come up against
Yep.
right now, anyway. So yeah, it could just get worse for them.
Alrighty, you're P15.
My P15. I've got just moving up to one spot. I don't really like how they're playing at the moment. I think they're actually on more of a decline, but they've moved up because of a couple of player teams around them. I got the Washington Capitals.
Yeah, I've got them at 14. Pretty much exactly the same as you. I don't think they're playing the best of hockey, um, especially since the best of hockey they've played this year. But they do win 2 out of 3, and they do beat the Boston Bruins this
Yeah,
week.
that was the good win.
Yeah, and then they get 5-1 loss to Toronto, and then the OT win against Columbus. So results you'd probably expect the regulation win against Columbus, but the good uprising win there was the Boston one. That's why they move
Mhm.
up 3 for me to 14.
Yeah, and no, that's fair. I feel like they've just slipped off a little bit. That Boston win's good and could kickstart them back into gear, but I just yeah, they're just they haven't quite been where they were probably a few weeks ago.
Alrighty. On to 13. Interesting one here I've got the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm not too sure where you went with them. Um, they had a good
I
week.
haven't been high on them at all this
Yeah.
year, other than the first few weeks. And yeah, I'm definitely not higher on them than you this week. So yeah, they're the same for me.
Yeah, they had a really good week though. They win both games that they played 5-1, pretty much destroying their opponent. Um, and pretty two good teams in Nashville and Minnesota, though Minnesota, as we've said, have been dropping off a bit. It looks like they're coming back to what they were, but need to see a bigger sample size.
Yeah, for sure. I'm the same as you. Like, the 2 great wins. I cannot argue that, and that's why they have moved up. But it doesn't take away from the fact that they had lost 7 out of 8 prior to this. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's a great start. Maybe the All Star break was what they needed to refresh themselves. Um, and yeah, let's just see if they keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Alrighty.
Moving on to P12. I've got a team. They have a big win today, and they still move down a position. At the LA Kings.
All right. I've got the LA Kings moving up, which is different where they were last week, but same position, 12.
Cool. I was like moving up. I was
Yeah.
just a little higher on them.
Well,
Um,
we averaged out. All right, we averaged back down to 12. There we go.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Nah, like I get it. 6-0 win was great. Um, it wasn't really anything they did wrong because they get an OT loss against Carolina, and then they get the 6-0 win against Pittsburgh. But it was more, I think there was just a couple of teams ahead of them, or one team, or two teams. Yeah, there were two teams ahead of them that I just had to um, move in front of them. I just think they're playing better than the Kings at the moment.
no, that's fair. I think Kings have been pretty consistent around this area. That's pretty good for them all season. I do think they're playing somewhat good hockey, and that is why they're at 12. And
Mhm.
that's why they do go to OT against Carolina. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how they finish the season. But it does look like they've been one of the most consistent teams around this area. Um, on to P11. This is a team drops off a bit. They're outside the top 10. It's the Seattle Kraken for me.
The second you said dropped off a bit, I was like, I know who you're talking about,
Yeah,
and yeah, I've made the same call.
yeah. They lose 3 this week. Granted, they were all difficult games. They lose the Islanders 4-0, and that's the issue is they lost 4-0. Then they lose to Devils 3-1 on a back-to-back. Lose to the Rangers 6-3. So a difficult schedule this week, especially with the back-to-back with the Rangers on it. Um, But the thing that screams out to me that they're not playing great is the 4-0 loss against the Islanders.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could say that the Islanders were on a bit of a Horvat high. um, but yeah, it's just three losses against two. Um, the Devils and the Rangers one I can't hold against them too much, but yeah, you're right with the Islanders one. It's not a game they should be losing 4-0. But
No,
I
not to be in
couldn't
the top
punish
10.
them any. Yeah, I couldn't punish them any further though because they have been really good this season. And I'm hoping for their sake it's just a minor setback.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I definitely had to move them out my top 10. Alrighty, I guess now we can start the top 10.
Top 10, huge. Let's go. All right. Moving back in it is one of the big powerhouse contenders finally sort of getting their season up and running. We've been waiting for it. Didn't have overly that great of a week, but I've still got them moving up a couple. It's the Colorado Avalanche.
Alrighty, that's where I've got them as well. They move up a couple. And like I said, they've just been playing good. It's what amazing what happens when you get players back from injury. And they don't have the best week in regards to results. They only go 500, but they had a pretty hard schedule week with Pittsburgh, Tampa, and Florida. And I am disappointed in the Tampa game where they get destroyed 5-0. It's why they don't move up any higher for me. Um, but I am pretty high on these guys now.
Yeah, I was probably considering them going up a bit higher, but that Tampa Bay game really does hurt them. But I still think that they are one of they're they're, they're becoming their old selves again. And they're becoming a real contender, especially as they get more and more of their players back.
Alrighty, on to P9. I have another Western Conference team. It is the Edmonton Oilers, and they also move
Yep,
up 2 positions for me.
move up 5 for me. I wasn't that high on them.
Oh,
I still have
he's working up.
questions around them.
No, there's definitely
Well,
questions around him, but yeah, he's working up.
yeah, yeah. I look, credit where credit's due. They're getting results. They're getting the wins. They're getting all that sort of stuff. So I kind of have to move them up. I can't not,
Mm.
but I still don't rate them as highly as what a lot do. Because like I look at their last 6 games and they played. I don't think they play a single team outside of the top 20 in our power rankings.
Yeah. One thing I will say though is like probably the last 15 or so games, a lot of their wins have been pretty good large wins, like 6-3, 5-2 type wins, and I think that's what their strength is. And they're not like their defense is an issue, but they're not conceding massive amounts of goals. They're kind of like a Vancouver in a sense, like pure offense, but they're not conceding the amount of goals that Vancouver are conceding. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, moving to the top 10, I think for the first time this year.
Yeah, I'd have to quickly check that, but I don't recall having them. Oh no, I had them in the top 10 really early on in the year.
Oh
And
yeah,
so did you.
yeah. Early on, it's kind of hit and miss, but yeah, I think after
But
4 or 5 weeks, that's where you know where they're at.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, they're turning it on at the right time of the year as well. So yeah, still got a lot of questions about them, but they definitely deserve to have moved into the top 10.
Alrighty, P8.
Right. P8 for myself. The team again, like you've got some teams who played 4 games, some that played 2. Um, it's hard with a small sample size, but they had a good week. They, I think they got both the wins. I got the Winnipeg Jets.
Alright, I've got Winnipeg Jets at P8 as well. Moving up
Yeah,
one.
I want to see more from them because they had started sliding before the All Stars break. Um, but yeah, they sort of get both wins. One before the break and then one after. But again, it's against 2 pretty poor teams in Chicago and St. Louis. But they do what they need to.
Well,
So,
exactly.
um,
And that's what keeps them in the top 10. Really, is they keep doing what they need to. And like you said, they did slide off before the break, and that is the question coming into these last 30 games: is that slide going to be a real slide? Um, but they've been pretty consistent around like 6 to 10, and 8 is kind of where they feel right. I am interested to see how they play against top 16 teams though. Alrighty, I'll move on to P7 in regards to the Dallas Stars. They moved down one for me.
yeah, I think they moved down one for me as well, going into P7. Um,
Yeah,
that's
like what do you say with them? Like they get results sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't look pretty. They win 2 out of 3, shootout win against Anaheim, win against Wild, and then they lose 3-1 against Tampa. They, they look good, but then sometimes they don't look good, and it's really hard to get a gauge on them. They're very inconsistent.
yeah, yeah. It's one of those. They're one of those teams that when they're on, they're on. When they're not, you can start to question whether or not they're even a playoff side. But they're on more than they're off at the moment, which is good. The the difference between their best and their worst is concerning. Um, because come playoffs, if you're not at your best, it can quickly be over. Um, and especially like you need to have the ability to win games when you're not at your best. And I feel like that's probably an area that Dallas struggle with. Um, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
look, they're doing what they need to do. They're in a playoff position. At the end of the day, you just have to get there. Their best is good enough
Mhm.
to go all the way.
Yeah.
It's just how long can they sustain it?
Yeah. Alrighty. Your P6.
All right, P6. Moving down a position. Not really to do with much that they're doing, but yeah, Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I've done the
I just
same.
had a real, I had a team that I had to skyrocket up
Mm.
the rankings, and I say skyrocket, but they move reasonably, a reasonable distance. But yeah, that's really the only reason they drop.
Yeah.
It's nothing that they really did. I still think they're a relatively strong side. Um,
I do think
they
their
go
blunder
two
is
and
is
two.
losing against Columbus. I think that's their blunder this week.
Yeah, they started perfect, didn't they? They blanked them 3-0, and you're like, yep, that's what you should be doing against Columbus, and then they lose 3-4 the very next day. Yeah, I mean that's the blunder. They had the loss to Boston, but again, it's Boston. Too you don't really hold that over their head too much. But yeah, that Columbus loss is concerning. But yeah, other than that, they're still playing good hockey. They're really well positioned. Yeah, can't complain too much about them.
Yeah, we're pretty much guaranteed to vest Tampa, so it's
Yeah.
not too big of a deal. Um, yeah, I don't have much more to say on Toronto at the moment, so I'll just move on to P5 then, which is the team I just mentioned. It is Tampa. They also moved down.
Oh, you made the same call. Awesome. I like it.
They moved down a couple. Yeah, they didn't have a great week. It's kind of like Toronto's week. They go 2-2, and they beat Dallas and Colorado in the end, but they OT lose against the Sharks, and they get absolutely walloped by Florida 7-1, and that is my concern. Is those two
Mhm.
games back to back,
Yes.
and that's why they moved down 2 positions for me. They're still a really good team, still got really good squad, and they're definitely guaranteed basically playoffs against Toronto at this point. So I don't know if you switch all your focus to scouting out Toronto and just making this massive plan to first them at this point. But yeah, down to 5.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not too concerned about them. I still think they're super strong. I think the loss to Florida was pretty much just an All Stars break, sort of hangover a little bit. Um, but yeah, at the end of the day, i- that's what drops them for me. They have two brilliant wins against Colorado and Dallas, but then they have two really big letdown losses to Florida and San Jose. So the two teams ahead of them just performing a little bit better at the moment. But yeah, Tampa's still one of the most dangerous teams in the comp.
Yep. Alrighty, I guess it's your pick now at P4.
It is my pick at P4, and yeah, this was we just spoke about Toronto and Tampa, two teams that are going to be playing each other in the playoffs, and we might be about to talk about two other teams that might be playing each other in the playoffs. Um, one of these teams and this team I'm about to talk about, I could honestly, the way they're playing, they are terrifying. Um, and they absolutely fleeced St. Louis for Tarasenko. I've got the New York Rangers, and I tell you what, they're about the tiniest of bees dicks away from being third or potentially even second. The way they're going.
Yeah, it's hard. I think they're probably one of the most threatening uh, at the moment. That's why you could almost throw them at number one just because how threatening they are. But
Yep.
they definitely haven't been one of the most consistent teams threatening wise compared to the ones above them. That's why I can't do it. But I do think they are the biggest threat, and they're probably going to be probably the best team in the last 30 games, considering if they keep this momentum. Like I said, they get Tarasenko in a fleecing trade where it doesn't hamper their squad at the moment, only makes it better in a really good side. And it, like, I know, I think New Jersey's only 3 points behind Carolina, and I think Rangers only 6 or something like that. But it does look like, that's going to be a Carolina, New Jersey, or Rangers battle in the first round playoffs, and that's sad to see one of you know top 5 teams in the league drop out in the first round. Have to fix the playoff format, but in regards to Rangers, it's hard to floor them at the moment. They've got the goalie, they've got proven players for the playoffs, including the goalie. They're now a cup winner in Tarasenko. Um, yeah, they got the complete package.
Yeah. Yeah, they're scary, that's for sure. Adding Tarasenko just makes them even more scary, to be honest. Um, and yeah, I could 100% see them sitting in the number one spot at some point from now to the end of the season. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, just touching on your top six in the like let's be honest, our top six is going to be. It's no secret that our top six is literally the top three in the Atlantic and the top three in the Metropolitan. They're your top six in your power rankings. They're the top best six teams in the league. I think it'd be very hard to argue otherwise.
Yep.
And the
And
saddest thing about the playoff structure is that two of those six teams are gone in the first round.
yeah, at minimum.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. Yep. Which is
Yeah,
which is stupid, beyond stupid.
it is.
And
It is.
Sydney
Yeah.
Crosby called it out, and I agree. On to P3. Didn't make any dramatic changes here, but New Jersey Devils just moving up a little bit. They haven't been like super strong. There are too many games, honestly, going to OT, but they look good before going to OT, and they're looking really good in OT. Um, I think they're probably one of the most complete teams alongside Carolina, Boston, like basically the top six. All these teams are pretty complete in their rosters. Jack Hughes is week to week now, and they still are playing good. So they're not riding him like they had to do with Taylor Hall a few years ago. And if you're a team coming up against them, I definitely think you're going to be fearing on what they can do, and especially if they do add Jack Hughes back to that lineup.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think Jack will be out for too long, according to Lindy Ruff. But yeah, they've definitely got a lot of things to be impressed about. It's not just Jack Hughes is having a stellar season. Yeah, that's fantastic, but they still managed to get the job done against Seattle, and almost got the job done today. They didn't look great against Minnesota, but Minnesota didn't look great either. That ice was atrocious. Players were just skating like normal and falling over. Um, but yeah, they're definitely one of the most dangerous teams in the league
Yeah.
with what they can do. I'm interested to see if they add anything at the deadline, especially now with the likes of the New York Rangers adding
Well,
Tarasenko. I
they
think they'll
almost have to.
right. Like
Mm.
you've got to improve that team because there's a high chance you're coming up against New York Rangers. Yeah, so interesting. I'd love to see them. It was good to see them win against Seattle outside of the OT or shootout. But this is why they're also impressive. Even though they go to OT, they come up clutch, right? Like they're trailing, they find that goal, then they win it. Like they're coming up clutch. They've got that ability to just go from we're losing to we've won.
Yeah, and
And that's what
Hamilton's
you
been
want to see.
sniping it from the blue line as well. He's having an
Exactly,
outstanding season.
for
On your
sure.
point about the ice, I've noticed it in a few games this season, and I think teams should honestly get fined for this or something because I've seen it, like you said today, but there was a game I can't remember if it was at Nashville, but I know it was a Nashville game um, against a team, and it was a similar case. The ice was just absolutely atrocious, and I think if you're not putting up good standard ice, I think you should be fined as an organization. That's just my view. Um,
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with you on that one. I think it's just it's gonna cause an injury one day, and that's one of the biggest issue. Um, yeah, all it takes is a player falling over on the ice because of how bad it is, and they land wrong on their knee or twist their ankle, and all of a sudden you could see a player out for months. Um,
yeah, or you get a Evander
yeah.
Kane
So
situation. um, but yeah.
well, exactly right. But
All
yeah.
right. Well, let's see
Anyway,
what you did with
moving on.
the top two.
Oh, yeah. Um, look, honestly, yeah, it had to happen. I'm sorry, Boston, but you lost a couple of games. I still think you're a powerhouse, but I'm just liking what I'm seeing from the other guys a little bit more. So we finally get a new number one. It's been a while, but it's
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, it's hard to warrant it because they're still 7 point clear of Carolina. Their goal differential is double of the next highest. Like they've just been that good for that long, but they have fallen off just slightly. And I think Carolina, I know win streak gets shut down today by New York Rangers, but they did outplay New York Rangers even though they lose 6-2. Just a little bit of a Panarin situation going on there. Yeah, Boston been playing good. I don't know, like they had the fullbacks sometime, just a little bit, come back a little bit to earth, and I think that's what they're doing. But they're still playing good hockey. That's what's annoying. Even when they fall off, they're still outplacing teams in regards to skill.
For sure. I mean, look, they lose 4 of their last 5. That is probably the only thing that um that made me sort of make that change, is because yep, you've lost 4 out of your last 5, but also Carolina has been so good. Um, I just I think Boston could well and truly be back at number 1 next week. It wouldn't take that much to get them there, but yeah, I think it just had to happen. They had to sort of move down. Um, so yeah,
And I guess number one, then I fill it out, is the Carolina Hurricanes. They've been just
yeah,
very good for a while now. They've beaten some really tough teams in the past few weeks, even including Boston. And they beat them pretty comfortably too. And look, they had one blemish this week that was against the Rangers today, and we got them at 4 in the power rankings. And honestly, they played better than them. It's just they kind of just let some in that they shouldn't, and got a little bit. Panarin's just playing amazing, so it's going to happen against top 5, even top 10 teams, and it's hard to floor any aspect of their game at the moment. They middle of the season they were shooting a lot and they weren't going in, but it seems like they're not having that issue anymore, and they're shooting standard amount of shots, and they're getting the high amount of goals. 4, 5, 5, and then today too. So I can't floor them.
yeah, exactly. I think they're pretty solid all over the ice. It's not like that they've got a weak too big of a weakness anywhere. I feel like obviously Anderson in net is a pretty decent goaltender to have. Um, and their defense is solid. They've got a good well, a good balance of defensive defensemen and offensive defensemen, or the defensemen that can do both. So I think they've found that key and that sort of click of, okay, we've got a couple of guys who are really good at just defending. They can get into the jump into the rush on occasion, but their main focus is being that solid defender, and that allows players like Brent Burns to go and do their thing. Um, and then yeah, on the offensive side of things, they've got so many people who can be damaging.
Mm.
So they can hurt you from so many different fronts. And then yeah, if they can get some solid goaltending from Anderson, they're going to be very difficult to beat come playoffs. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think Brent Burns is a really big pickup, um, especially in regards to just leadership in the locker room, and he
Mhm.
has playoff experience. And it's insane to think that they lose Hamilton to free agency, and they're still number one in power rankings at the moment. 2 seasons long. So it's in credit to how good that team is, how they've built it around the draft, and then just added a few key pieces in regards to people like Brent Burns. And they've done a rebuild or restructure a few years ago, and they've done it perfectly. Honestly, they've hit the nail on the head. They're going to be good for years, and they do look like a playoff team. They look like there's no reason they would drop off in the playoffs. If you don't have anything else to add, I guess you can sign us out.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. I can't sort of argue too much on any of those points. I think they're going to be a very tough team, which is one of the things that makes the Metro so scary. Is the top 3 teams in the Metro right now are probably the most dangerous teams in the league, and they're young. They're only going to continue um to be good. So yeah, for sure. But yeah, guys, let us know what you think in the comment section below. Um, what do you think of our rankings? What are your rankings? Did we did we rate your team correctly, or do you think we were a bit harsh or a bit too kind? Let us know below. If you like the video, give us a big thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. We're dropping a lot more videos lately, especially with the trade deadline coming around. So if you like our content, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell so you can, get notified for any other videos we drop during the week.
Alrighty.
Until next time, guys, take care.
Yeah, take care. Bye.